everyone. I'm Sherelle Evelyn.
And I'm Peter Masru. Welcome back to the Hill Times office in Ottawa. It's October and things are getting pretty busy on Parliament Hill and in government offices. Wouldn't you say, Sherelle?
Yeah, absolutely. But despite all of the competing priorities, the top issue for everyone, regardless of party, is affordability. When Parliament resumed last month, it coincided with the release of fresh inflation numbers showing that the cost of food had jumped once again. This highlights just how important it is for politicians and policymakers to at least look like they are doing something about cost of living issues. To that end, the Liberal government, when they came back, the first two pieces of legislation they tabled were to implement their affordability plan. This $4.5 billion measure is supposed to target the most needy Canadians by doubling the GST credit for 6 months, topping up the Canada Housing Benefit with another $500 for renters, and putting in the first steps towards a national dental plan for kids under the age of 12. Now, this dental program, which gives $650 a year for 2 years to low-income Canadians who don't have dental insurance, is a key part in fulfilling the Liberal NDP Supply and Confidence Agreement, which, if it all goes well, is supposed to prop up the minority Liberals until at least 2024.
Yeah, that's right. And things are going to be pretty busy in the House of Commons, but of course, affordability, as you mentioned, that's going to be the key word. The Bank of Canada has a big announcement coming on that front, actually, on October 26th. That's when it will reveal its latest decision to lower, maintain, or raise the key interest rate. Now, the bank has repeatedly raised that rate over the past year to try and get high inflation under control. And October 26th is when we'll find out whether or not Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem believes he's gone far enough, or whether he's going to raise that rate more to try and slow down spending even more, make borrowing more painful. Now, if that decision isn't clear enough, the bank will also be releasing its monetary policy report on the 26th, which will lay out its expectations about inflation and economic activity in Canada in the months to come.
Right, and it's not just banks who are going to be paying attention to that announcement, it will be politicians as well. Especially new Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who's made plenty of headlines criticizing Macklem and his staff for how they've tried to manage inflation throughout the course of the COVID pandemic. Now, Poilievre, he's going to be trying to making his mark as the Conservative Party leader who finally sticks the landing. He has been in this job for, only a few weeks at this point, and it hasn't been the smoothest of starts. At the very beginning, he had party and caucus defections, NDP attack ads, and a less than docile parliamentary press gallery. But Poilievre's been in the game for, almost 20 years, and his message has largely been one of affordability, talking about those issues like how hard it is for people to buy a home. Now, his political opponents, they're going to be pushing back on what they've characterized as his lack of credibility on the issue, pointing to things like his boosting of cryptocurrency, for example. But given the large margin that Poilievre had in the Conservative leadership race, he's got plenty of people who are willing to hear him out. And so he's going to be talking to them both in and out of the House.
Yeah, and speaking of the House, it's busy in there right now. The government has a lot of legislation it's trying to push through. Bills on cybersecurity, consumer privacy, independent oversight for the Canada Border Services Agency, among a lot of others. And government ministers are going to be really busy this fall as well. In particular, Steven Guilbeault, the Environment Minister, he has a couple of high-profile summits coming up for him this fall. The first will be in Egypt, and that's a UN summit on climate change. Now, the Liberal brand, of course, is tied pretty closely to fighting climate change, but the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau hasn't actually been able to really take a bite out of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions yet. Guilbeault has announced a plan to try and change that, which includes steep hikes to the carbon tax and rebate program, a cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector, and a series of carrots and sticks that are being talked about to prod the auto industry into selling only zero-emission vehicles by the year 2035. That's what we can expect him to be talking about, I think, in Egypt in November. Now, there's also going to be a UN summit on biological diversity in December, and that will be in Montreal. Guilbeault will essentially be the host of that summit. And the key topic of conversation there, I suspect, will be the 30 by 30 campaign, which is an aspirational campaign to try and conserve and protect 30% of the land and water across the world by the year 2030. Guilbeault is going to want to show some momentum toward that target to impress as the host in December.
Yeah, so that's a really big to-do list. But that's all the time we have here. So from Ottawa, I'm Sherelle Evelyn.
And I'm Peter Mazeroux.